Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. I'm hoping you guys are all having a fantastic day. So today's upload, as you can tell, we'll be talking about a absolutely supercharged storm system that will be making its way through much of the East Central United States, the Mid-Atlantic, Ohio Valley, Eastern Midwest, and into the Northeast. Now, if you recall, a few days ago, there was a bigger talk about a potential snowy side to this storm. Really, that has dwindled down, and unfortunately, it looks as if this will stay mainly rain for much of the Northeast. There will be a bit of snow, right? But those amounts will stay under 3 to 4 inches versus some amounts that were earlier shown, reaching a foot of snow. But I mean, winter's just beginning. Don't worry. These type of failures or busts, if you will. I know there's a lot of snow lovers. A lot of this stuff will still be going on. I mean, we're not even in November yet, right? So nothing to worry about. But nothing to worry about in terms of not seeing the snow. But the rain will be pretty significant. If I were to look at the National Weather Service, their watches and warnings. I was on a radar right there looking at it. I mean, you can see that there's a whole range of winter storm warnings across the panhandle of Texas and Oklahoma. They had just ridiculous amounts of snow, and they will see more snow. Lots of flash flood warnings and flash flood watches. Then we also have a tropical storm warning and a hurricane, I think, or a storm surge watch that's still in effect for a lot of the coastal Louisiana, Alabama, and Florida, and Mississippi. And this, you can see, extends into portions of D.C., Maryland, and possibly into New York, these ridiculous amounts of rain. So this will not be a snowstorm, but it's still a supercharged rainstorm. Before we do get any further, if you guys would like to subscribe to this channel, I just wanted to quickly add this in. Consider doing so. This is a weather-related channel, and it's only possible by you guys. So if you would like to, consider doing so. And if you're a returning viewer, liking the video would be amazing. Let's take a look at a high-resolution model and play this radar, this future simulated radar. This isn't necessarily what's going to happen. This is what the models are kind of predicting will happen. And let me tell you, even though this thing is a high resolution, very accurate, this thing could be wrong. It has been wrong many times, but it also has been right many times. Whether or not it's going to be right or wrong this time is obviously the million-dollar question, and we'll most likely find out after the storm occurs. Okay. Notice that the hurricane, I think it's a hurricane. I honestly didn't even make a checkup with that on myself, but whatever it may be, it's going to bring a lot of rain, a lot of storms, thunderstorms, and strong winds. And you can see that this model keeps it 978, so I'm assuming a Category 1 at least. And a lot of moisture already flowing around. You can see that this model is doing a bit of an underestimate in terms of the amount of moisture that is present. If I were to go to the radar, say, let's just click right there at the office of, Memphis, Tennessee, and let's go to the radar. You can see I have a full flood warning as of right now. There might have been a flash flood advisory, I don't know, but let's look at the national radar, and you would see this thing is huge, so there's a lot of stuff that needs to be moved around here. And if I were to look over here, I mean, you can see that the rain is pretty widespread, and it's not extremely heavy across, everywhere, but there are pockets. Anywhere you see that yellow, it's some pretty consistent rain. That's considered moderate rain. Anywhere you get that dark green, that's already, that's on the heavier end of the light rain scale. And anywhere you get those oranges, that's just heavy, heavy rain. And if you go right there onto the coast, you see New Orleans right now, Louisiana, the Mississippi River Delta is literally, it made landfall a few hours ago, and this thing is definitely producing lots of rain, and this continues to surge more and more moisture up. So this thing is a superstorm in terms of moisture. In terms of wind, it's also impactful, but hopefully, the winds could stay limited to the coastal areas where the hurricane is. But notice a lot of moisture continuing to flow across very, very similar locations. And look at that. Also, Texas Panhandle, Oklahoma Panhandle getting resurging amounts of snow. This is going to be falling very heavily. So if you do live in the panhandles of either Oklahoma or Texas, or even eastern New Mexico, you could still see quite a bit of snow. I think they're forecasting still 4 to 6 inches additional. And this model does show, in fact, some locations even seeing towards the 8-9 inch range. So definitely quite a bit. You can see this rain continues pushing up to the north still across, generally the same locations into late tonight, into early Thursday. This is at around 11 o'clock at night today. tonight, Thursday. This is now 2 o'clock Thursday morning, the wee morning hours, if you will. You can see this thing is still very strong. It's a little packed guy. I mean, that guy is very tight, very small in terms of its precip shield just from the actual storm. And it would be actually interesting to see how big the storm would be if it weren't for you know, the aid from the winter storm that brought a lot of this moisture. It would definitely increase, you know, bring a lot of its moisture by itself, but it's definitely being helped out. That's why, you know, the combination of these two storms, these two systems, is why this thing is so OP, if you will. It's overpowered, it's supercharged, and notice this snow does finally move away from the panhandles at around 7, 6, 5 o'clock in the morning hours of tomorrow. And notice the rain continues, and a lot of the locations that already got quite a bit of rain are then going to get the actual brunt of, at this point, most likely a tropical depression or even a ex tropical storm, depending on how well it stays. At this point, 988 is still relatively organized, but it's obviously quickly losing right there. Notice we see lots of rain. This thing develops into more of a large precip shield that is more consistent, not all scattered. You can see right now it's a bit more scattered, right? This will be very cool to see on the radar, just this giant shield of precipitation extending 1,000 miles plus easily. I mean, you can see into from the panhandle of Texas all the way to the Jersey Shore and into possibly reaching Cape Cod by 7 o'clock in the morning tomorrow. And I do also want to point out there will be a little clipper moving across North Dakota and Minnesota tomorrow, so if you do live across those locations, you could get a quick 2 to 3 inches. And notice this thing really you know, seemingly goes to the north, but it takes a beeline to the east as the high pressure right here steers it further off. And the hurricane, you know, hurricanes usually when they make landfall, because of how the pattern is across the United States, they don't usually turn towards Canada or the West Coast. They always move out towards the east, a bit sometimes further north, a bit quickly, a bit quicker, a bit slower, but generally towards the east. And you can see a lot of this precip moves into Long Island, New York, Boston, Rhode Island, Connecticut, into upstate New York, into Vermont, New Hampshire, and this is where we could see a bit of that snow starting to mix in, right? And actually, you know, maybe a few inches will fall across the Vermont, New Hampshire, and northwestern Massachusetts, central New York maybe, but nothing compared to what the models are showing. But still a bit of snow is there, so snow's always snow. Maybe we could even see a bit of lake effect getting onto Chicago, as this storm has a very wide, you can see, wind field. So some pretty powerful winds, especially with this weak high pressure. Thankfully it's weak. If this were to be strong, we could have seen some very strong winds here. There still will be gusting, and you can see some lake effect showers moving into Chicago and Indiana, so that's interesting. But notice that at this point, this is now late Thursday, early Friday, the precip seems to be all disappearing, but it looks as if there may be a resurgence, because some models don't just end it right there. They kind of bring a little second wave of this storm. We'll have to see, but let's also notice again, look at that little clipper. This starts moving. This is 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 o'clock, and much of northeastern North Dakota gets blasted by a few inches, and into portions of Minnesota. Even the Twin Cities seeing a bit of snow. And honestly, this thing has kind of come out of nowhere. The models have really emphasized this in the past couple of hours, or past couple of model runs, so definitely a few inches. And if I were to show you the precipitation amounts, they are obviously really high with all this storm going on, all these storms, many locations. Look at that, southern Missouri, the Ozarks into southern Illinois, western Kentucky and Tennessee. We could be seeing easily, you know, 2 to 5 inches of rain, so that's interesting to see. Also, where the actual tropical storm remnants track over, you could see quite a bit as well. And a lot of these locations aren't necessarily dry; they are quite a bit wet. But really, it's just the sheer amount of rain that will be falling, not necessarily what already is in the ground. And again, if I were to show you the NAM 12KM, you can see similar amounts, just a bit more phased, blurred out, because that's what the NAM does. It's not as high resolution. But you can see it still increases more precipitation afterwards, and that's what I meant by that second wave, the second resurgence of moisture. So as soon as the system may seem to be over, it might bring a few more surprises, and I don't know why that. I clicked on the wrong thing. So notice this is what where the HERS stops, the HRR model, high resolution, the one I was just showing you. Also, notice Clipper right there, continuing. And notice that the NAM 12KM keeps a bit more snow to this, and also a bit more precipitation hanging around. And you can see that's the second wave actually bringing snow into portions of Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, New Jersey. So a bit of snow is still there, right? As I said at the beginning of the video, 3 to 4 inches. It's just that it's not as much as the earlier were showing. All right, so you already saw the precip. Let's look at the total snowfall. You can see that this NAM model, which tends to have a cold bias, shows a bit more cold air than usual, or than usually anticipated. Some locations, according to this, seeing up to 6 inches. I don't think they will. I would say a general 1 to 3 inch event, though, is possible, and that's still exciting, especially if you live in Connecticut, Rhode Island, where October snow is generally more of not a common thing. Has happened before for sure, but it's not an annual occurrence. And notice quite a bit of snow actually may fall across the Dakotas and Minnesota out of that little guy. Quite a bit more than it looks. 3-4 inches even, so definitely the road conditions will be pretty miserable across those locations as well. And obviously anywhere here will also be pretty bad, as just rain does cause traffic, even if it's just rain, not snow. This is the NAM 12KM. Again, generally the same amounts for the snow that Clipper to the north, a bit more widespread and a bit more less amounts, less concentrated, quite a bit across the panhandles of Texas and Oklahoma. And then generally the same as the NAM 12KM, just a bit less, maybe more realistic, I think. But again, sometimes these storms do throw surprises. Let's look at the HER model in terms of the snowfall. Again, this model takes us not through the whole event. Once it stops right here, but you can see some of these locations definitely seeing a few inches of snow for sure. But look at that, the panhandle, anywhere in that pink, that is above 6 inches, and that whiter coloring, that's pushing towards a foot of snow. And again, this is the radar. You can see this thing is just extremely impressive. Lots of moisture. This thing has just so much to work with. If it were to produce snow, the concern is that it would produce it very quickly, and it would fall at rapid rates. So a few isolated amounts of high snowfall totals are not out of the question. The European model, for example, you could see takes a general track snow across the panhandles, lots of moisture, and it does mix in a bit of snow across the northeast coast. Again, nothing extraordinary, but I mean, look at this right here. This is early Friday morning. Some snow pushing possibly into Boston, Worcester, Albany, New York. The coastal areas, New York City, Long Island, maybe not seeing much at all, really, but still cool to see that much snow in the first place. And you can see that the European almost shows nothing out of that Clipper. So that little guy right there across the Dakotas really came out of nowhere, and we'll have to see what it does in the next few model runs. They may intensify this and maybe push it into Illinois. So I'm just dreamcasting at that point. Hoping it will, but most likely not. Let's focus on that snow across the northeast, right? And for those watching this video and you may be looking and thinking like, oh, why are you only focusing on the northeast? Well, my last, I think, 7 or 8 videos were focused on the west and the northwest, so I focus where the weather is more interesting, if you will. But I don't just forecast it. I don't have a northeast bias. That's not even where I live. Notice the European does put out some pretty cute amounts of snow. No, I'm kidding, but pretty nice amounts of snow. You could see even in some locations seeing 8 inches across the higher elevations. And look at that, Boston maybe seeing 2 to 3 inches, so that's definitely cool to see. Obviously, the panhandles of Texas, some locations seeing almost a foot according to the European. And then we see that Clipper, which the European absolutely nerfs. And we could see a very large Clipper next week moving across the United States, which could bring cold air and lots of snow in southern Canada and a bit into the lakes, but mainly a lot of the snow that will fall will be the lake effect, and you can see that indicated by those amounts right there. So definitely interesting. Notice very heavy snow amounts again for British Columbia. Those they may get absolutely swamped by snow this year, and it looks to be a ongoing pattern. So get ready, and also there could be more activity in the west going on in the longer range start of November. So very interesting. Weather is definitely not getting boring by any means, and we'll just have to keep this updated. Let's go back to the National Weather Service map. I just want to see if they have snow totals up for maybe portions of Boston and portions of Rhode Island, Massachusetts. I do know that they did mention this. Rainfall forecast probabilities, latest weather, that probably right there. I don't know why that took me so long. Expected snowfall, you could see maybe even 4 to 3 inches across Worcester and Pittsburgh, I don't know, is that what it says? Yeah, Pittsburgh. Not Pittsburgh, but Fitchburg. And Boston, according to this, seeing 0. But again, as you saw, some of those models definitely including a chance for those locations. So this is not all set in stone. And again, if that cold air is more present, that transition will occur quickly, and it will fall heavily, that snow. But look at that. That's just impressive amounts of warnings and watches. If you look at northeastern Illinois, sorry, I don't know why I went there, just out of habits of going there when I want to check my weather. I wanted to go to North Dakota quickly, but focus more across these locations as they will be seeing snow. And again, they don't even have any issues out or any advisories because this was pretty out of nowhere, but they definitely have this stuff. Less than half an inch, an inch. I think there will be definitely more, but this is what they're showing. Again, I think there will be quite a bit more. Maybe they have it more across the Arrowhead. They're definitely going conservative for sure, but I think there will be quite a bit. All right, so thank you so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you guys on the next episode. See ya.